Welcome back to Voyages of Shelf-Discovery. Earl at thelogbook.com here. And I'm sure you've noticed what with all the Plaguing Surviving Mars going on lately, I'm just on a bit of a space kick. I can't explain it. I certainly won't try to excuse it. But that brings us to a part of my setup here that really you can just barely begin to see over here, right where I'm pointing at there. It's not within the range of the camera, so I actually got up and shot some footage of it so you can see what is there. And what it is I actually have a pretty healthy little setup of vintage space toys. Well, I say vintage. Some of these are fairly recent. In fact, the ones that I'm going to open on today's show are fairly recent. Some of the ones that I have on display, however, are pretty old. These were, Space Shuttle Enterprise, Space Shuttle Columbia, various space shuttles from that marvelous era in the 1970s where the space shuttle was going to solve all of our problems. Here we have some Hot Wheels action packs from the 90s. The Mars Surveyor 98 mission, the less said the better. The Mars Pathfinder mission with the Sojourner Rover, another space shuttle from the 70s, and the Galileo mission to Jupiter. All of these things, all of these JPL missions, there's a nice little purple patch of JPL missions getting Hot Wheels action packs. And there are some individual ones in there, including the ones we're going to be opening today. We're going to open some Mars Rovers and some other rovers. That's a much more recent space shuttle, complete with the Hubble telescope there. Really more of a display model than a toy. Some of the stuff on display there is really old. I mean, it dates back to my single digits, especially the little fleet of loose space shuttles. Oh, there's also a lunar excursion module and an Apollo command and service module. Both of them kind of delicate. They have they've been on some missions, and they have battle scars to show. So yeah, it's not something that the camera necessarily always sees, not the webcam, and it really doesn't see Puck very often. And there's Puck the cat, ladies and gentlemen. So it's very much a cherished part of my collection, especially those loose space shuttles, the first ones you saw. Let me start that again. Those date back to when I was younger than 10. And the funny thing is, even though those shuttles have no name decals on them, when I was a kid, I decided which one of... The one that had the tail cone, obviously, was the Enterprise, because the Enterprise was the only one that ever had that for the approach and landing tests in 1977, where they kept on throwing it off the back of a 747. But I could tell you, from left to right, sort of Columbia and Challenger and Atlantis and Discovery. And I don't think I ever appointed one to be Endeavour, so I think Endeavour is the one that's in the plastic case with the Hubble. Why not? But yeah, once you lost a shuttle, there was kind of an innocence lost thing. There was sort of a, wow, okay, these aren't just toys. Those are just toys, obviously. But, conceptually, I had kind of turned a corner. Now, what we are going to open today are some fairly recent ones. And for whatever reason, I had to obtain these in lots, so I wound up with multiples. So I am not opening the ones that are on the wall. I'm opening, it's kind of my rule whenever I get a package of something that I got off of eBay or whatever. The ones that need to be opened will make themselves very apparent very quickly, and the packaging on these took a bit of a beating. So let's start with the Curiosity rover. Obviously, this actually dates back to 2012. Was when Hot Wheels first released these in different packaging. Now, the Curiosity rover has been through a couple of different packaging styles, and I am trying to remember. I think this one was sent to me by my friend Dustin Carter from the good old days of the digital press forums, and there you have it. Curiosity roving around. The thing about the Hot Wheels Action Pack Sojourner rover was that it actually duplicated kind of the rocker bogie thing that made Sojourner such a unique design, and really the beginning of the design line that carries on all the way to Curiosity and Perseverance. Now, the toy version of Curiosity here, it duplicates the look of, kind of that pivoting arm that keeps all of the wheels from ever getting stuck at the same altitude if it's trying to navigate something. But unlike the Hot Wheels Sojourner, that the rocker bogie thing is purely decorative here. It's not actually a functional part of the design. Yeah, the Sojourner toy was really cool. I mean, it was very educational. And so the detailing on this is very nice. Now, one of the things that makes me really curious enough to open Curiosity and Perseverance, also open a Perseverance, is that there are differences between the two rovers in real life. I want to see if Hot Wheels bothered to acknowledge those differences with the toys. I don't think anyone's going to hold them to it if they didn't. It looks to me like the wheels are a different color, and that's it. So you have here, so this is Percy, this is Perseverance. Looks very similar. Again, you have a decorative version of the suspension system, but not a functional one. You have the little NASA logo on the front. And let's see, are they actually any different? Because the cameras that are mounted on the masts of the actual rovers are different. Here, doesn't look like they bothered. And like I said, I doubt that anyone is going to hold them to that. Perseverance has kind of reddish wheels, as you do when you've been on Mars for a while. Curiosity has these more kind of brown wheels. Other than that, they appear to be very much identical. Now, the next thing we're going to open is this was a crazy thing where I had to have the one on the blister card that I wanted to hang from a hook over here as part of the display. I had to get it in a lot that also had these boxed ones. These are called Matchbox Power Grabs for whatever reason. I think they're online exclusives. And this is well, I'm not in the best light to read these. It's the Lunar Chariot. Oh, it's in a baggie. Fancy. Okay. It's an experimental. It's kind of a concept car for a future lunar rover. Unlike the kind of open seater of the Apollo missions, what you have here is you have a fully enclosed cab. I mean, it's almost it almost looks a bit like a tractor trailer rig. In that, you could conceivably have a trailer on the back, although obviously you can't because it replicates the equipment rack at the back of the vehicle. Now, I say this is a concept car, but this is not something that just exists on a drawing board. This is a real vehicle. They have actually built one and tested it. The really cool thing about this, I believe they call it the Space Exploration Vehicle, or at least that's what Matchbox is calling it, the Chariot, is you can see there the control of each wheel is independent. It has 6 wheels, but the control of each wheel is independent, and you can actually turn all of the wheels sideways and roll yourself up out of a crater. Even if your wheels would be stuck in a forward and backward motion, if that would not get you out of that crater, you turn those wheels sideways, climb out of that crater. How cool is that? Some other features, you can see the equipment rack they have on the back, which is, pretty faithfully replicated on the toy version of this. And there's a little bubble there, so if the driver wants to get down there and really gauge if he's about to drop himself into trouble, he can. Now, those 2 doors there actually lead to the spacesuits. The spacesuits are mounted, when they are not in use, they are mounted on the back of the vehicle, and you enter basically through the backpacks. And they'll show this in a moment. So this is, it may be kind of a concept car in space, but this is not something that has only existed on a drawing board. They've built one. Okay, you see the astronauts doing the spacewalk, they just clamp their spacesuits into the receptacles, and you enter and exit the suit through the backpack, which presumably you also load your life support gear in through the back of that. You have to have someone help you, I'm sure, get into and out of it. But that's a really cool little vehicle, and it's a very nice model of it. I kind of have Mars lighting going on here. But yeah, you can see the doors where the EVA suits would attach to the back of the vehicle, and so that is the SEV Chariot, as Matchbox calls it. Now, one final one, and this one is not a car. This one is also a Matchbox vehicle, though. This is from Matchbox's Plane series. This is the Sierra Nevada Dream Chaser. Now, this is a vehicle that has existed in various forms for years. And Sierra Nevada Corporation, SNC. They are trying to convince NASA to add this to the rotation of commercial vehicles servicing and visiting the International Space Station. In fact, I believe Sierra Nevada even floated the idea that this vehicle, which is kind of like an SUV version of a space shuttle, could potentially visit and service the Hubble telescope. That's a fascinating idea. Now, the Matchbox version of it, appropriately enough, it's larger than a car. The SUV version of the space shuttle, that's really more of a, not really so much about the size as it is, it's just telling you it's a more compact version of the shuttle. Now, the funny thing about this general design here, it's got this kind of tripod landing gear thing going on here, which we'll get into in a moment. Because again, this is a thing that has actually been built and test flown within an atmosphere. The interesting thing about this is that the general aerodynamic outline of this vehicle was first tested by the Soviet Union, and I believe it was in the 1980s, and at that time it was called BOR 4, BOR 4. Not sure what that stood for, but then NASA got hold of intelligence regarding the test flights of scale models of BOR 4 and built it up into a vehicle called HL-20, Heavy Lift 20, in the 90s, where it was seriously considered as a contender for assured access to the upcoming International Space Station if anything happened with the space shuttles, where for some reason they needed to be taken out of service. And then NASA stopped development on HL-20. The design just kind of stuck around, and Sierra Nevada Corporation came along and said, well, we'd like to do a privatized version of this, as part of the commercial crew. And, they started getting funding for it. The design was already more or less finalized. I'm sure Sierra Nevada Corporation tweaked it quite a bit. And there you have it. A vehicle that, if NASA had continued to develop it in the 90s, would have meant that in 2003, when Columbia was lost, we wouldn't have suddenly been 100% reliant on Soyuz to get to the International Space Station. Now, I say that Dream Chaser has been test flown. It has been test flown in a way sort of analogous to the 1970s test flights of the Space Shuttle Enterprise, in that a full-size mock-up was constructed, fitted with aerodynamic sensors, and, lifted to a certain altitude, and then flown in for a runway landing to verify that its aerodynamic profile would allow for it to come in for a survivable landing under non-powered flight. Non-powered flight means that, there are no engines firing. It's not like a jet plane. It's basically coming in for not really a dead stick landing, but there is no go-around power. This thing's got to hit the runway the first time, the only time. It has one chance. So basically, very much like the space shuttle there. And as you can see, of course, it has aerodynamic surfaces. It has ailerons and flaps and so on. And, looks a little wobbly on the film there. But, hey, I see it coming right down the center line of the runway. That's not too bad. Now, the front landing gear on the actual vehicle is a skid. It's not a wheel. And I have to imagine that thing is going to, ablation and abrasion, they're going to have to replace that skid frequently. I'm not sure what the design rationale for the skid as opposed to a front wheel is, but there it is. It has yet to taste space, but I think there's a lot of potential there, and the fact that NASA has continued to throw commercial crew money at Sierra Nevada Corporation to keep developing the Dream Chaser is indicative of the fact that NASA sees some potential in this dude as well. Now, as far as scale goes, I'm going to say they're not far off. If they're off, it's not by much. So, and of course your your Mars rovers of the modern age, Sojourner and Percy, yeah, they're about the size of a Jeep. So, if you really care whether or not everything is to scale, these are probably not to scale. This would be a good deal larger than the Jeep-sized Mars Science Laboratory or Mars 2020 rover. But overall, here's the thing. I love toys based on real space vehicles because they enable conversations like this. They allow me to kind of go off on these little tangents and just maybe, teach you something you didn't already know about, some of the possibilities that are waiting in the wings, or, waiting with wings to happen, not in the distant future, but perhaps sooner than we think. So, I'm always happy to add some real space vehicles to the collection. And if you excuse me, I'm going to go fly this around the room.